Hey quilters, this is Lynn with Kansas Troubles Quilters. I'm here today for our last block of the Vintage Christmas Sampler Quilt Along. We're talking about flying geese today, and we're going to make 34 of these. There's a set of 14 and a set of 20, and it's on page 18. Everything looks good from the pattern. You can use the two backgrounds that are stated here. Somehow I used a different background because the one that I was supposed to use, I had already used for something else. So I just grabbed another tone on tone, and I think it'll be just fine. This is a scrappy quilt. I'm not going to worry about it. There will be substitutions later, I'm sure, as well as we get into the spacer pieces that are in the assembly. But right now we're just going to recap a little bit about flying geese and connecting corners. So we're going to start by using our handy dandy little Kansas Trouble 6.5-inch ruler and a Soline marking pencil. I love my marking pencil in the blue because for my fabric it shows up on the light as well as the dark. When you have your 2.5-inch square, right sides together with your 2.5 by 4.5-inch dark background, you position your ruler diagonally across the line, the square, draw diagonally. I try to put my ruler so just the point sticks out so that when I draw, the line is actually from point to point. And then I actually stitch just on the edge towards the corner of the line. And that gives me just a hair extra, so when that corner is trimmed, the seam pressed open, and the is toward the corner, then I have a much more accurate 2.5 by 4.5-inch rectangle with the two triangle pieces. So the first thing we want to do is sew stitch on the first one. We always start at the critical point, which is the intersection in the middle. So we stitch from center to point. You're going to trim that, press the seam open, then add the square on the other side, making sure that you have a full 3/8 of an inch here so that after you stitch, trim, and press the seam open, we have a nice 1/4 inch right here that will be in our seam allowance. So you are finished. Flying geese should look something like that. So if you make 34 flying geese, we put 14 in a row with the number 10 background and 20 in a row with the number 12 background. And you'll be all set now to assemble your quilt. So I don't have all my blocks put together because I have to show them exploded at our retreat. So I am just going to kind of talk through the pages. It's pretty self-explanatory. Every page has exactly what you need for the blocks that you're going to use from page 20 to 27 for each section. The only error that I found that needs to be corrected is on page 21. Tan number 4 under section 2 should be, B should be a 2.5-inch by 8.5 instead of a 2-inch. Anytime you have spacer pieces like that, measure your parts, measure the distance, and see what size you need. If anything, I would always allow a little bit extra and then trim all those down to the exact size. So I think if you do the B 2.5 by 8.5, you're not going to have any trouble at all. So for section 1, it's pretty simple. We're going to do a log cabin. This is the upper left corner. So you have a log cabin, a greetings. The C is just the bells in a square. Now, if you've already fussy cut and cut up all your bells, just choose another fabric. It can be any color. It can be any one of the ones you have left at this point, other than your borders. Anything is fair game because you've made all the blocks you need to make. In fact, you could do a big half square triangle if you wanted to. You could do a big 4-patch. You could add the giant ornament that I showed you how to do last week and add a border around it. You can do anything you want to make this your quilt and use up the pieces and parts that you have left. The only difficult, and I say that it's not really difficult. I try to avoid making a sampler quilt that has a corner seam, a set-in seam. But this one, we ended up having to do that. There was just no other way. So where the X is right here is your set-in seam. You can see where this goes across and then has a little leg down. So this section, after it's pieced, you'll piece in right here. And the best way to do that is to start on the left-hand seam, sew it about within 2 inches of your corner. Then sew straight down and then sew that corner. And I think you'll find that it will lay flatter that way instead of trying to sew clear to the corner and then sew the next seam. I feel like I have better luck if I do a partial seam, sew the seam, and then go back and finish the original long seam. As you're sewing all these blocks and spacers together, I always try to press toward the plain block or the spacer or a background piece or a sashing piece. And that way we're not trying to force it, pressing towards all the points on the stars and the piece blocks. But I also found that there are times when I have pressed thinking that that's the best way to go. I start assembling the quilt and there are two opposing seams, two seams that are not opposing that are going the same direction. In that case, you can go about a 1/2 inch down from the seam and clip your seam and just press that part, especially if you've already sewn it into another seam on the other end and you can't just press it. There is no reason that you can't clip it and just press the seam in the direction that you need it to go. Just make it work for you. If you were hand quilting this in the ditch, that may not be the best answer, but I have found with it being overall machine quilted, you're golden. You really don't have to worry about that. So just make your seams work for you as you assemble the quilt. So next week, we'll talk about borders. I will show you how to cut a length of fabric if anybody has any questions about that, and we'll also talk about how to do mitered seams for the narrower borders and an option for your greetings border. So until next week, our final leg of our quilt along, I will leave you to get your quilt finished and we'll talk soon.